Just over a year ago, we all held our collective breath as the news broke of Top Gear presenter Richard Hammond's high-speed crash. He'd lost control of a jet car at nearly 300 miles an hour. It had had a blowout. His last memory was thinking, so, this is how I die.
Well, doctors thought his recovery could take years, but unbelievably, he was back on his feet and full of beans, it seems, in just weeks. Before long, he was back at work, and now he's even back behind the wheel with the rest of the boys at Top Gear.
Right, so this, theoretically, is the start of the greatest driving road in the world.
I fear I may have made a slight mistake here.
He had. There was a cycle race on, and his brilliant road was closed.
What?
Are we allowed to drive on it?
No.
No. It's shut!
It is a bit.
You've dragged me all the way to Liechtenstein to go on a road that's shut!
A bit. Completely.
Great relationship between great presenters, and a very warm welcome
Great
to
relationship. We just shouted it.
Well, we love it. Richard and his wife Mindy giving their here now to give their first TV interview. So, you know, a tricky one for both of you, but we'll be very gentle. When you met whilst he was in PR at sort of corporate headquarters type of thing, didn't you? So, did you meet him at the time when he had his only proper job?
Yeah, actually. Yeah.
So you had really no idea what had come before what he was into, because this is a guy who, as a kid, had done constant stunts, jumping very dangerously from balcony to balcony, all that sort of thing, hideously dangerous
Mindy
stuff.
thought I was a grown-up, is
I
what
did,
you're saying.
actually,
Yeah,
didn't
you did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I thought, well, no, I thought you were quite trendy, though.
What? In what way have I ever been trendy or
had long
fashionable?
hair.
Yes, that's true, I did. I was very fashionable.
Well, the picture we just showed there was very trendy. Let me look at that. Look at
Yeah,
that.
It's quite
as you
long
can see,
now.
height of fashion. Good there. What a miserable
So
state.
when did he tell you, or when did you get to realise that this guy had this need for speed?
Do you know, I really didn't realise. Well, I think it was the way he drove his company car gave it away, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
He occasionally did the odd sort of handbrake turn.
Not on the roads.
High speed. Not on the roads. No, never. But yeah, he was quite a speed freak. So had you, when he was doing all these things on Top Gear, had you ever been worried when he left to go for work? No. No. It was daily life, you know, you just sort of got used to it. That's what he did for a living. So, and I got used to not thinking about it. Whatever he was doing, I just thought, okay, he's gone to work.
So
We've heard a lot about, you know, what Richard remembers of that day. So what are your memories when you first got the phone call to say something had happened? Oh, just sort of blind panic, really. Well, I didn't actually know how serious the crash was. Nobody did, really, I think. Obviously, I hadn't seen it, and Andy Willman rang me, who's the series editor, producer, and he said, it's okay, he's moving his arms and legs, because he wasn't there either. So they'd called him and said, look, he's had an off, but, you know, he's moving his arms and legs, he'll be all right, but they're taking him to hospital. And he didn't know how bad it was, actually. So when you were driving up to Leeds Infirmary, did you hear anything on the radio? Did anybody phone you to say, look, this is not looking great? I knew he'd crashed, had no idea the severity of the crash, and it was actually en route to Leeds. I heard on Radio 2 on the news, Top Gear presenter Richard Hammond had been involved in a very serious accident. He's in a critical condition in hospital. The car has rolled and flipped, and his wife Mindy is driving to be with him, and I just completely exploded, you know.
Here's one of the news reports from that day using that word that you hadn't heard before.
The Top Gear TV presenter Richard Hammond is tonight critically ill in hospital after crashing at 280 miles an hour. He was driving a jet-propelled car at an airfield near York as part of a land speed record attempt programme. It's thought he had already broken the record. He was doing one final run when the accident happened.
Now, as we've said, Richard, I mean, there was an awful lot. We know a lot about this accident. It's been mentioned, the newspapers mentioned on the programme.
I've never seen any of the news.
You haven't, of course.
No, it's the first time I've seen any of the news clips on it.
From your perspective, one of the things about you mentioned in the book is that we all go through our lives and we wonder, you know, what will be the circumstances of our death? What will it be like? Where will I be? How old will I be? But you had that moment in the car thinking, oh, this is it.
Yeah, when I wrote that in the book, it was, I mean, that was partly because we'd agreed at the outset we were going to be very honest, because if it was going to have any value, then we had to be honest about these things, and that is what went through my mind. And it wasn't a big dramatic, I knew there was nothing more I could do. I'd steered, I'd deployed the parachute, cut the engines, and then it started to roll, and there was no other option. It was the next thing on my to-do list. It was just, yeah, which sounds like I'm trying to be very brave or very melodramatic. It wasn't. It was just, that's the next thing to do. I don't see how else it can possibly end. So, yeah, that's how I told it.
When you finally catch up with him in Leeds Hospital, and you see the state of him, and he's... Tell me about the scale, the brain scale.
Oh, the Glasgow Coma Scale. The Glasgow Coma Scale is something that they use when they see somebody at the scene of an accident with suspected brain injury. 13 to 15, I think, is sort of mild brain injury. Then it goes down the scale to moderate, and severe is, I can't remember what it is. I think
it's about 8 or
8 and below.
Yeah.
And he was a 3, and 3 is actually the lowest score.
Did anybody warn you before you went in to see Richard what to expect?
No.
And what faced you when you walked into his hospital room?
It was a standard sort of intensive care ward, and it was like walking on the moon. Everything was just slow motion, and whatever anybody says to you, you don't really hear. You just think, I just want to see him. And we went past so many beds, and every bed you walk past, you think, is that him? Is that him? And then we got to his bed, and it appeared not a mark on him. He had this sort of Klingon lump on his forehead where all the fluid was draining forwards, and his eye was a bit sort of gammy and disgusting. And there were lots of machines, lots of monitors and drips and things, but to be honest with you, looking at him, I instantly just thought, he'll be fine. Because there was some, you know, I just knew if he was in there, he'd come back, because he's very tough.
Well, getting him back was prime. I mean, obviously, my God, what an incredible team of
amazing
doctors,
people,
surgeons, experts around you. But getting him back was partly down to experts who shouted him back. Was partly.
Well, he very, very rarely gets drunk. Very rarely. But if he did get drunk, he like most men, just decide to go to sleep now, and go to sleep wherever, usually downstairs on the sofa. And I used to have a hell of a job moving him, so I used to end up bellowing at him. You know, that was the only time I ever shouted at him. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, one of the nights, all of his machines and everything were showing that he was dipping badly, and they were doing observations on him. He wasn't coming out as he should. He wasn't giving any response at all. And I just looked at the nurse, she looked at me, and I said, "This is bad, isn't it?" And she said, yeah, it is. She was trying to get some response for him, had no luck at all. And I said, can I try? Can I shout at him the way I do when he's drunk? And she said, yes, try anything you can. And I said, but I'll wake everyone up, you know. She said, it doesn't matter, just try. And at that point, we were both hunched over him, and she was had his hands around her index fingers. And the idea is, one of the observations is for them to squeeze. And he was doing absolutely nothing. So I just said, Richard, you squeeze those bloody fingers, because this is important.
At the top of your voice.
And he made the most infinite movement, but I mean, we both just thought, oh my God.
Do you remember any of that? Obviously, I mean,
I remember, I do have an odd memory of being in a coma, actually. The coma is an odd state to be in, because it's not like you're completely asleep. Well, this is my recollection of it. There were brief moments of consciousness, because I did dip in and out. And I do have a rather odd, I suppose, a dream of being wandering off, and I do recall suddenly realising, actually, I think I'm in trouble. I don't think they're finding this funny anymore. And I do remember a
multi-schoolboy type of thing.
Yeah, very much so. Felt like, well, I suspect when Mindy was shouting, I mean, she shouts at me all the time. That's about not, it was just a lie.
So how many days
constantly.
was it before you actually came round, before he opened his eyes? Were you there at that
It was only a
point?
few, wasn't it? But I don't remember at all. I don't remember the first few weeks, but...
Yeah, I mean, the trouble is, I actually don't remember one day to the next, because I didn't sleep. And it's just bizarre. I'm sure anybody who's in hospital with someone in that
sort of auto mode.
yeah, and one day turns into another, and you can't differentiate.
You, I mean, the recovery and travelling to Bristol and the work that was done there, and then your break in Scotland is all documented in the book. But I just want to, obviously, we get to now, is where you are now. You say that you'll never be the same person. You'll never be the person you were before. What's changed about you?
I don't think anybody who goes through, say, an experience like that, anybody who crashes a jet car at 300 miles an hour, well, that's a fairly limited number of people, but anybody who goes through particularly acquired brain injury, as I did, or any sort of major trauma, when you're perhaps a bit near the edge, inevitably you emerge from it slightly changed. And not in big obvious ways, but perhaps in subtle underlying ways. I mean, I will always now value more. That sounds like I valued them less before, but Mindy, our two daughters, the drive now to be at home with them is stronger than perhaps it was. That's not to say I was a neglectful father and husband before. Was I?
No.
No? Good.
What do you notice, Mindy, in him? Has he changed? Are there pieces of him
Taller?
that are different?
Much taller.
Good.
Much taller.
Like celery, bizarrely.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, that's the biggest change. There used to be, because obviously he's very busy with working in television, we live in Gloucestershire, so he spent a lot of time in London working, and he'd quite enjoy it, you know, go out with the boys and have a drink and enjoy it and make the most of it. Now, when he's working in London, all he wants to do is get home. And that is the biggest change.
But I suspect that's very common for anybody who's been through something. It just makes you just reevaluate.
You just value your life and your family. And it's a fascinating book and great and very interesting that you've had to write a lot of it because he couldn't remember so much, and you've enjoyed that.
Well, it's very therapeutic, actually.
Why did you write it?
Well, the main reason, to be honest, was a lot of people have friends or relatives who've been through brain injury, and it's kind of a closed book. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's something.
It is almost a taboo
stigmatised
subject. I mean, having been in the course of recovery, clinically confused, a terrible amnesia, having gone through that experience and been, I'm told daily I'm lucky, and I was lucky, and been lucky enough to get better. By looking back over that experience, and both of us being very honest about how it affected us, what it meant to us, and it wasn't all sweetness and light between us all the way through. It's not an easy process recovering from something like that. So we figured by being honest about it,
and you have been. You've been
well,
very
it's good
honest.
therapy for us.
It's beautifully written. You're a fantastic writer.
Yeah, all right. That's all I get daily. Honestly, yes,
Sorry.
Really pleased, darling.
On the Edge, my story with Richard and Mindy as well. And thank you both very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Great to see you looking
Thank you.
so well.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. We've got cookery after the break with Angela. She's mutton she's got for us today. Not dressed as lamb, as you said, though. Back after this.